This is our rainbow baby. Hey, hola, mi amor. Let's do this. So, before I share my story, I just want to say that every experience is different. I got induced. I did not want to get induced. I had my own personal reasons for it. I didn't want to get epidural. I was trying to, feel what I could. Okay, baby wanted to join. My whole pregnancy was very smooth. Praise God. I had no complications, nothing, no symptoms. Everything was running smoothly until about probably 34 to 35 weeks. My doctor started noticing that my blood pressure was going up. It started at the 140s. It kind of led up to like the 150 mark. And that's when she told me, I went in for my 37-week appointment, and she told me, she's like, look, your blood pressure keeps going up, and that's something that we are concerned about because we don't want it to lead to preeclampsia. And she pretty much told me that they were gonna have to induce. And my whole pregnancy I was against induction. I wanted to have the natural labor. I wanted to feel the water break, all the things you see in the movies. I wanted it to happen. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to go as far as I could, and which I feel like a lot of first-time moms are like that, or have the same thought process. But I'm just here to say anything, literally anything can happen, whether you like it or not. And that's just something that I emotionally was not prepared for. I remember I broke down crying, but at the same time, I trusted my doctor. I think that's the main thing, to trust your doctor. And I remember I was just like crying because I didn't want to get induced. And in reality, there's not really nothing wrong with getting induced. But I know that every experience is different. My experience wasn't crazy. Someone else's experience was different. But I give like my full experience thanks to my doctor and God, obviously, because my doctor, although it was like an induction, she really focused on letting my body do its natural thing. Even though they were giving medication to make it happen, she did it so smoothly where I didn't feel like it was being forced, and I loved it. So anyways, back to my high blood pressure. I was worried. I was like, am I eating a lot of salts? And I was like, why is this happening? Every time I would go, I was freaking out that my blood pressure was going to be high. This was around the 36-week mark. And I just had a feeling. I just don't know why. The night before going to my 37-week appointment, I told my husband, I was like, I just have a feeling they're going to tell me that I'm going to have to get induced because my high blood pressure. And in reality, I felt no symptoms. Usually you feel I guess lightheaded or dizzy, or you start seeing blurry, and I had no symptoms, which was concerning because even though I had no symptoms, my blood pressure was marking high. And I just remember being a little overwhelmed and stressed towards the end because I really wanted it to be natural. I wanted to feel everything, and it didn't go that way. And that all just goes to show that God literally is telling me, girl, you're a control freak. Let me do my way and just relax and trust me. But I'm stubborn, and the whole time I was like, why is this happening? It's not fair. It was supposed to go this way, but it didn't. Obviously, God had other plans, and in all honesty, it was a blessing in disguise because although he was growing strong and healthy, it was my health that my pregnancy, the hormones were reacting like that for causing my blood pressure to be high. And it was literally, I guess, up to for my health, because as I went into get induced, I got induced on the 27th of October. We show up, we get a room, and then we just wait because they give me medication. They give me a pill, and they put it in there. And pretty much that pill is going to help you dilate because my body was not dilating at all. It had to kind of make it happen. And that pill, every 2 hours they would put in a pill and make myself dilate. The first pill, the 2 hours passed. I couldn't get out of bed. I had to stay in bed, which was hard because I needed to pee so bad, but I had to stay in there for the 2 hours, just laying in bed. That way the medication can stay in there and it doesn't come out. 2 hours passed. They checked for me to see if I was dilating, which, oh my gosh, is so painful. They stick their hand up in your business and it's very uncomfortable. I think that was the worst feeling. The pelvic exam, or not the pelvic exam, the I don't know what it's called, but when they check your dilation, oh my goodness, I remember feeling very uncomfortable. I wanted to cry, and it hurt most when I was actually dilating. So the first time they checked it and I was 0, I still didn't dilate. So then they put me another pill, another 2 hours waiting there. and then they checked to see if I was dilating, and that's when, oh my goodness, I was crying. Like, it was very uncomfortable. Like, they put their hand in there to see how far I was, and I think I was 2 centimeters dilating. It was so uncomfortable. By the second pill, I was already dilating 4 centimeters, which was good because the doctor wanted my body to respond. After I reached the 4 centimeter, the doctor came in and broke my water, which it wasn't uncomfortable at that point. I'm trying to remember, they had given me the epidural. I did get an epidural because as I started feeling the contractions, which they weren't too bad, but because of my high blood pressure, I started getting like nervous and anxious, and my high blood pressure was spiking up. 160s or 150s. It even reached the 200s at one point, which is very bad. Like, that's, like, Google it. High blood pressure, like, you can die. And that was the most nerve-wracking part, because my blood pressure was just it was going up and up and up, and I remember just praying, like I was worried that something bad was gonna happen, but at the same time, I wasn't, because I didn't feel anything. Like, my body, like, I was super chill, but every time the machine would go off, because it had the machine like monitoring me consistently. Yeah, papa. The machine kept going off every 15 minutes, like, automatically. They would check my blood pressure, and the nurses would come in because it would always beep. The monitor would beep when it was high. It was like at the 150s, 160s throughout my whole like labor, when I was like waiting, like kind of getting induced and dilating. At one point, towards the end, it reached to 200, and they had to give me magnesium in my IV, which is I think it's like a medicine to like lower your blood pressure. But then the magnesium made me super sleepy, super drowsy, made me feel hot. Like, well, actually, I don't remember. I just remember feeling like hot. Like, thank God I took my little fan, because I was like sweating up in there, like. And I guess that helped lower my blood pressure, but even then it was still at the 150s. And sometimes it would drop down and it automatically just randomly go back up. And that's the main concern that the nurses had, and my doctor as well. They were like looking at my blood pressure. And baby was fine, monitoring his heart. He was good. By the time I was at 4 centimeters, they broke my water. I believe at this time I had already requested the epidural again, because if I would have not had the epidural, I think my blood pressure would have kept going, because I would have actually been feeling the contractions, and that would have made me more like in pain, and it would just been like worse for my blood pressure. So even though I didn't want the epidural, I'm glad that I got it, because it helped me control, like, I guess the blood pressure, or like not spike as higher as it was. And it wasn't too bad. Like, I'm thankful, at least my experience, the epidural, they put it in your spine. They make you kind of bend down. I didn't get to see nothing. They made Julian get out of the room. They made my mom get out. And I was alone with the nurse. They put in the needle. And you just feel like super cold liquid going down your spine. That's literally how it feels. And then your legs start to feel like tingly. Like, they don't go, like, I could feel my legs. Thankfully, I don't think they overdid it. Maybe I've heard stories where girls, like, don't feel nothing at all. They don't feel their legs. And that's what I was worried about. That was one reason I didn't want to get the epidural. Aside from getting a catheter inside you, like, that's also like, oh, like, I didn't want that. But to be honest, it wasn't even that bad. Like, I didn't feel it when they put it in me. And yeah, it was just funny. It was weird, like, such a weird feeling. Like, I think I was like 40. It was bad. Like, I couldn't even tell if I was peeing. I couldn't tell nothing because I didn't feel. But I could feel my legs. They just felt numb. Like, you know when your legs go to sleep and they're tingly? Like, I was able to slowly lift them up, but it was very tingly. And that's what I liked. I liked that I was still able to feel, but also I wasn't feeling the pain. So I guess they didn't give too much epidural, but still a good amount where, like, I could still feel when I was pushing, which I'm glad, because I wanted to feel that. That's the reason I didn't want to get an epidural. Like, I wanted to feel pushing. I wanted to feel like him coming out. And I'm glad that I still was able to feel like the pressure, but not the pain. Although I hear stories where girls just don't feel nothing, like nothing, where like they don't even know if they're pushing. So again, I think it matters like who you get, who's in the room with you, and it's all different. Every girl's experience is different. After that, I didn't feel that she broke the water with like it was like a little long stick. It didn't feel bad. It felt very warm when the water came out. After that happened, I started dilating 7 centimeters. I started feeling contractions because I think the epidural was wearing off, which I was confused. My blood pressure was still spiking. It was kind of tense because of the blood pressure, but not really because I didn't feel nothing. I was just sleeping, trying to like avoid feeling the contractions. And I started to tell them like I could feel the contractions. Like I thought I wasn't supposed to feel nothing. So they came in and they gave me like a little bit more dose of the epidural, and it was back to normal again, like the tingly sensation. And then finally I was at 10 centimeters and I started to have the urge like I had to poop. And that's when I knew baby was coming. They called my doctor, they prepped me, my nurse helped me. She was teaching me how to push, we were counting. It was a very sweet experience. It took me like 30 minutes maybe pushing. It felt like forever just to get his big old head out, my little baby. He was 6 pounds, I believe. And he came out and it was very beautiful. It was such a sweet experience aside from the blood pressure stuff. But wait. So after I gave birth, I was not allowed to get out of bed because they were monitoring me because of the preeclampsia, because my blood pressure reached 200 and they were scared I was going to start to get seizures and all that. And wait, before he came out, the doctor came and told me like, look, like your blood pressure is really high, and like she told me all these risks for him and for me, and it was freaky, but I know that's just part of their job. And I was like freaking scared. I cried and I called my pastor, like we prayed, my mom, everybody. Like I was worried, like and I was like, God, please, like make sure it goes down. Like I was so scared, but thankfully everything came out right. But it was just scary because you don't know what can happen, and they tell you the risks, and that scares you. After he was born, he was perfect. I was good. I got a tear actually, and it was just 1 degree tear, which wasn't too bad. I couldn't feel nothing that much because again the epidural, but I was so tired. Okay, I had to pause to feed the baby and put him to sleep. He's napping back there. But where was I? Oh yeah. So after I gave birth, they had to monitor me for 12 hours in bed. Like I was bed rest for 12 hours, which was like frustrating because I wanted to get out of bed. Considering I gave birth naturally, like you recover faster, right? But they were only monitoring me because they were afraid I was gonna like end up getting like seizures or like something, like get symptoms from the high blood pressure, since it was kind of still lingering. And it sucked, but it actually went by pretty fast. I made my baby at 7:54 a.m. and by the time it was like 8 p.m. I was able to get out of bed. But obviously like my body was like, woo, like the nurse had to walk me to the restroom. I had the catheter on till then. They took it out. It didn't hurt as bad. That's because the epidural had already worn off. And yeah, I mean, it was just like recovering from the whole like bleeding and all of that. But I think I have some questions that some of y'all had asked. One time I made a poll on my Instagram. To be honest, it was a very like beautiful experience. Aside the blood pressure kind of like tension, it was really beautiful. I loved it. I loved that I was still able to feel a little bit, aside from getting the epidural. Even though it was not the way I expected it to go, it was the way God wanted it, and it was beautiful. Baby was healthy. I was great. But it was a little overwhelming even after birth, I'm not gonna lie, because I had to stay in the hospital actually for 4 days after. They were monitoring my blood pressure and it never went down. Like there was days where it like will go down and all of a sudden it will go back up. So they couldn't release me. Like I had to, like, even though I was able to get out of bed, thankfully we were allowed to get visitors in, so people were coming in and out. It was a little tension because I was learning to breastfeed all at the same time, and that's a whole nother story. Like breastfeeding journey, oh my goodness, it is a lot of work. It is beautiful. It's worth it. I love it. But it is so much work and it's not for the weak. I'll probably end up doing like another video on that if you all have questions, but that's another story. Anyways, so he was learning to breastfeed, and at the same time, he ended up getting jaundice, and oh my god, that was like a whole nother story because he was gonna end up having to stay in the hospital. But thankfully, because I was still at the hospital, like we were both together, like I was like worried that they were gonna have to make me go home and he was gonna stay on the UV light, you know, because of his jaundice. And I just felt overwhelmed. I was new mom, I'm still a new mom, but everything was so new, so fresh, and like I remember just crying because I was emotional about my baby, worried because he wasn't probably eating right because I was still learning to breastfeed. And then the doctors kept coming in and out, like nurses, or like they don't leave you alone because they're just coming in and out to check on you, to check on baby. Nurse, lactation, like ladies coming in to help you feed and like learn, which ask your questions if you're interested. And also like the nurses coming in to check my blood pressure. Like it was overwhelming because my blood pressure literally never went down, and I couldn't leave the hospital until my blood pressure was showing consistent low numbers, and it wasn't. They were giving medication and it still wasn't, and I was overwhelmed because I just wanted to go home and be with my baby and like start this new life, but I couldn't. And the days felt like forever, but finally we got released on Halloween, and we were able to go home and be with the baby, and it was beautiful. Aside from just overwhelming and stress, like I just had to like give it all to God and just continue to trust him, because it was a lot. Because once they released me, then they told me about the baby having jaundice, and once they released the baby, then my blood pressure was high again, so then I couldn't leave. So it was like back and forth situations, which added up to the 4 days of me being there till finally we were able to go home. But I'm glad that in between those 4 days, like family and friends were coming over, dropping off food and all that good stuff, seeing the baby, taking photos, all of that. One thing I forgot to mention is that in between the 2 hours, like when they were putting in the pill, like for me to start dilating for the induction, I wasn't allowed to get out of bed until after the 2 hours were over. But once the 2 hours were over, like I was on the ball, I was on the peanut ball, I was bouncing up and down, like making sure that baby was dropping low. Because considering the fact that my body wasn't doing it naturally, because I was still 37 weeks, like my body was not ready for labor, I was like making sure that baby was dropping down, because I didn't want to be there like for days in labor. And the nurses even recommended, like, yeah, you're able to get on the ball, like bounce on the ball. Like I was doing all these things to make sure like baby was going down, and thankfully he was. Like he was like head like down, everything was good. But even like the day when I went to the clinic and my doctor told me about possibly getting like needing to get induced, I remember I went home and I was on the ball. Like all night I was on the ball, like waiting for the call for the hospital so that I can be scheduled to be induced. So we were that whole day waiting for the call, until finally the next morning at 7 a.m. we got the call. We went to the hospital, and that's when everything happened. How did I pain manage? So I actually was getting educated on like different like techniques to do, like breathing techniques, because in my mind I wasn't gonna get epidural and I wanted to feel the pain. I felt like I had really high pain tolerance, but it didn't really go that way for me. So I did pain manage, because there was brief moments where I was feeling the contractions, and literally like it was like breathing techniques that helped me like if you relax, you have to relax your jaw and your whole like everything down there will be relaxed. Like breathe, like think happy thoughts. Like you need to find the place where you are going to just like not tense up and just breathe. I remember taking a deep breath in with my husband and out, and I needed my husband's security. So every time like a contraction would come in, I remember I would like just raise my hand and he would get off the sofa and come next to me, and then we'll breathe together, and then it will go. But like again, it wasn't that, I don't know if I felt the full like actual like contractions, because again it was induced, and I was also kind of semi on epidural when all of that was happening, and I was able to feel some contractions. And I would say I personally felt like they felt almost like really, really strong period cramps, but it didn't feel like in the crazy movies, at least for me. I don't know other girls, this was just my experience. But I was able to feel the contractions, which I'm glad, because I wanted to feel something, you know, specifically because I was induced and it didn't happen the way like I wanted. My water break, I wanted the mucus plug, all that stuff that's probably gross, but like I wanted it to feel all that. I wanted to like feel like the energy, the rush, all that, but in a way like I'm glad, and I don't regret like the way it turned out, because I know it was all God's plan. And that's one question that I guess somebody else asked, which was, you know, if I could go back and do something different or better prepare, what would it be? And to be honest, I don't think there's anything that will prepare you for your birth experience, because as much as like education that you would take in, which I think that's really good. I educated myself. I watched videos, I looked at stuff, like I followed different girls and they had all these techniques and like exercises and stretches. I was doing all of that because I was preparing for it to be natural, for it to come at 40-week mark. It didn't happen. So I don't think there's a way to better prepare. I think there's ways to prepare, like get knowledge in like the stuff that you want to learn, educate your husband, learn techniques, breathing to manage pain. But one thing that even people told me, but I ignored it because I was stubborn and I was like, no, like I want it to be my way. Like I know what I'm doing. Like I'm reading all these books. Like I was very like first time mom, obviously vibes. Like, oh, like she's gonna learn when she gets there. And I did. Because one thing I would say is prepare for the unexpected. Like literally prepare. Like I knew things could happen, but in my mind I was like, it's not gonna happen to me. And it did. So like that's something that I would tell, I guess, moms preparing or things to expect when they're gonna give birth. Like I don't wish you the worst, but you have to, I guess, something to just not go your way, because things happen and you have to be ready, and more emotionally, because physically your body is doing what it has to do, but emotionally get ready for something to not go your way and find ways to alternate and you know, get your mind in a good place where you're gonna be okay with whatever's happening. Because at first I was mixed emotions, crying like, oh my God, and I just had to sit back and be like, you know what, God, like it's all up to you, leave it in your hand. There was literally like nothing that would maybe prepare me for what happened to me, because that's something that I didn't think would happen. I'm glad that it just worked out the way that it did. Continue to read and educate yourself on all that stuff. It really helped me a lot, like the process of birth. Because when I was at the hospital, like I felt like I knew what they were talking, like all the medical terms, all of that. I like researched it like ahead in advance. I looked at other mom blog stories, positive birth stories. I hated when people gave me like negative, I guess, stories, or told me like negative stuff, because I was trying to be very positive, but in a way I knew that negative things could happen. And yeah, like fill your mind with positivity, know and understand the process of birth, the different medications, or like as far as like if you were to get an unexpected induction like me, like I knew what Pitocin was, I knew like the whole, like I forgot the name of the pill, but like all of that, like I knew in advance because I was like looking into it. But at the same time I didn't want it to happen to me, but I knew about it. Like I didn't feel completely lost, which I think helped me. How much weight did I gain overall? Overall, I gained 38 pounds in my pregnancy. Towards the end, I started getting very swollen, and I think it had to do maybe with the preeclampsia that led to it. Working out throughout my whole pregnancy, I had a healthy pregnancy, so it was very confusing to me as to why I had high blood pressure. But even my doctor told me, like, it just happens. Some pregnancies, you're going to have high blood pressure. Other pregnancies, in the same body, same girl, perfectly healthy, nothing wrong. Girls get diabetes or like prehypertension, all these stuff happens, and it's just the hormones. There's literally nothing you can do. It's just the hormones. I blamed myself so much. Like I should have done this differently. I shouldn't have eaten so much hot Cheetos or things like that. But in all honesty, there's nothing I could have done to stop this. Another question is, were you scared? What tips would you give to a soon-to-be mom? I don't think I was scared. I was more nervous, like leading up to like birth, like I got a little like extra nervous with the high blood pressure stuff, but I don't think I was scared. A tip that I would give like earlier is like, you know, just be prepared, educate yourself on the process of birth, different techniques to like reduce pain and prepare, and also what to take at the hospital. That helped me too, like breathing and just like essential oils to feel relaxed. Like, you know what works best for you, so find that and talk to your husband. Y'all need to be on the same page about things. That helped me so much with my husband. You know, any methods to prevent tearing during birth? So this is something that my husband and I did. Like we did perineal massage, I think that's what it's called, and I honestly think it helped. Yes, I teared, but it was only a first degree tear, which my doctor said was really good, because a lot of women end up tearing like more than that. And I I honestly think it's because like my husband and I did the perineal massage, and it was a little uncomfortable at first because it's very tight down there and you have to just relax, and that helped practicing breathing as well. Like there's different videos, look it up, and that helped us. All the other stuff I pretty much answered already, but yeah, that was my birth experience. It was beautiful. It was, like I said, it just felt tense because of the unexpectancy of it. But I think that's one thing I would say to new moms, is that just prepare for the unexpected. I know you don't want to, and you avoid hearing those negative, "Ooh, baby's waking up." So that was my story. I feel like I was all over the place explaining this, but I just hope that helped maybe some of y'all who are about to enter this new experience. And I just wish you the best if you're a new mommy, a mommy to be. You got this, you're strong. Positive vibes. Your life is about to change. Everything changes with a baby. I think it's important to always have someone to talk to and connect during this experience, because it's hard. It can be so hard. But look, there's a whole baby that comes out of this. We're so blessed. Yes, we are. We prayed for him. We longed for him. And if you don't know our story, I think there's other videos on my page if y'all want to look into it. But I'm just so blessed and blessed for him, because we longed for him so much, and he's here. And his birth was beautiful. It was perfect because it was planned by God, and he was with us through it all. Bye guys.